2024. Are you getting ready? And I am too.
After a week of midterm elections fallout,
many Republicans blame the former president in part for the lack of a red wave.
I think that American people voted for sanity.
And speculation over whether this speech would even happen.
Members of the former president's inner circle have advised Trump to put off the announcement.
Donald Trump has finally made his intentions clear.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
If Donald Trump wins the nomination in 2024, he has a very good shot at becoming president. The speech itself was a boiled over version of the campaign speeches that he's been giving all throughout this year. He depicted basically the country as in precipitous decline ever since he left office. And again, his pitch was that he alone could fix it. But interestingly, he largely refrained from reiterating his point, which he's really had a tough time letting go of, that he thinks the last election was stolen and corrupt. He ad-libbed a line about how China might have stolen the election from him in 2020, which I think was relatively new and certainly unscripted.
China played a very active role in the 2020 election. Just saying. Sure, that didn't happen.
But other than that, he largely steered clear of those issues which have consumed him for the last 2 years. But I think the midterm election results shook the Republican Party's faith in Trumpism. He tried to spin what was almost unanimously considered a very poor result. Despite the outcome in the Senate, we cannot lose hope. We have taken over Congress. Nancy Pelosi has been fired. Isn't that nice? He said that he deserved the credit for Nancy Pelosi no longer being the Speaker of the House. That is probably going to be true, but they didn't manage to, in fact, flip the Senate as they had hoped. And they also lost a few governorships, including for devoted acolytes of his, like Kerry Lake in Arizona and Doug Mastriano in Pennsylvania. But, he was undeterred by that reality and still claimed that it was a success. There are clearly other Republicans who are thinking about entering the presidential fray.
At the end of the day, I would just tell people to go check out the scoreboard from last Tuesday night.
Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, who, by contrast, had a very excellent night in the midterms where he won by 20 points, looks to be ascendant in some polls among Republicans. They now say that they prefer Ron DeSantis by a margin of about 7 points. Before, Ron DeSantis had been behind by quite a lot. Ron DeSantis shares Donald Trump's pugilism. He has the same enemies, and that pressure might have been why Trump went ahead and declared his candidacy for the presidency, despite the fact that he had just had a disappointing result in the week before. I think part of the motive for Donald Trump declaring his candidacy early as well is the raft of legal challenges that he's facing. At the moment, he is under investigation by local prosecutors in Georgia over his possible solicitation of election fraud. He's under investigation by the Attorney General of New York, and the January 6th committee has also been investigating him for longer than a year now. Him being an active candidate for the presidency obviously complicates what was already an extraordinarily complicated legal situation. And I think that makes it harder to imagine that something like a successful conviction would happen anytime between now and the 2024 election. I think that if Donald Trump wins the nomination in 2024, he has a very good shot at becoming president. Americans, even if they're tired of Donald Trump, are still incredibly polarized and still have very strong partisan allegiances that are quite hard to break. So the idea that some Democrats have been espousing in the last week that they would relish the opportunity to take on Donald Trump again might ring a lot like the feeling that many had in 2016 when they thought that he'd be an easy opponent. And I think that there's a risk that Democrats might yet again be underestimating his chances. Thank you for watching. To read more of our U.S. politics coverage, please click the link. And also, please don't forget to subscribe.